Welcome back to FM Storey for a 5-season rebuild of Chelsea. Less than a week ago, Chelsea finished 6th in the 23-24 Premier League season, and just days ago, Mauricio Pochettino joined the rather full ranks of former Chelsea managers. Obviously, they've spent many hundreds of millions of pounds under Todd Boehly, but don't appear to have progressed too much, although with all the young players they've signed, the future does appear as though it could be quite bright. The aim for this rebuild is to do better than Chelsea did in real life for the 23-24 season, then look to become a side challenging for and lifting Premier League trophies. Although the most difficult aspect of the rebuild may be trying to survive 5 full seasons as a Chelsea manager. So without further ado, let's see how we get on. So we've taken over at Chelsea, and just before we get started, just to look at when they last won the major trophies to see if we can add anything to that. So the Champions League they last won obviously in 2021, the Premier League was 2017, the FA Cup was 2018, and the Carabao Cup was 2015. So it's been a while without a domestic trophy. Hopefully we can fix that pretty soon. Looking at what's available in the transfer window, there's no money available for transfers. There is 150k in the wage budget, so there's a little bit of wiggle room if there's someone available on a free, but I don't think there probably is before this first season. And indeed, we didn't add anyone else in the transfer window, and we didn't sell anyone else either. Looking tactically, what we're looking at is a 4-3-3. We are going to try and nail Cole Palmer in on that right-hand side, where he did so well, certainly in the first half of the season. And I think he played a bit more centrally in the second half in real life. But getting him cutting in off that right-hand side, giving him the game time to try and help him develop, and then we'll let the assistant manager choose everything else from there. Going into the season, the bookies have us as the 5th favourites for the title, and none of our players are in the Media Dream 11, which isn't too much of a surprise. It is a very young squad that hopefully should develop as the rebuild goes on, along with players that we can add as well. And then looking at how we started the season, we've started pretty well. So we started with a 3-2 victory at home against Wolves. Cole Palmer popping up with a winner just after they'd equalised. We then went away to Brentford and won 2-1 and hung on a bit towards the end. West Ham, we beat 2-0 at home. And then in the Carabao Cup, we won 2-1 at home to Wimbledon. Not quite as convincing a scoreline as we would have hoped for. And in this first season, we don't have any European football, so hopefully we can make a bit of a stride in the domestic competitions without the extra games coming from Europe. So let's go ahead and simulate season 1 and see how we got on. So season 1 saw us finish 3rd in the league, 5 points behind Liverpool, 3 points behind Man City, who finished 2nd. It was obviously we've done better than was expected, because we were expected to finish 5th. We did well once when Nkunku came back from injury. He was our top scorer in the league with 16 goals. Robert Sanchez managed to keep the joint most clean sheets in the league. We did lose 6 games. We lost twice to Brighton. We got hammered away at Man City and Arsenal, and they also lost away at Nottingham Forest and Newcastle as well. So we lost 1 home game all season, which we'll take. Drew twice against Liverpool. We drew the home game against Man City. I think we have to sort of maybe turn some more of those draws into victories. Looking at how the season went on, we were sort of pretty much between 2nd and 4th for most of the season. By the looks of it, we did have a bit of a drop down to 10th at one point. But we spent a chunk of the season in 2nd, and then towards the end of the season, we sort of dropped off a little bit and ended up winning on the last day of the season against Crystal Palace to finish 3rd in the league. FA Cup, 2-1 win away at Brentford in the 3rd round. 3-0 victory at home against Burnley in the 4th round, 3-1 victory at home against Liverpool in the 5th round. And in the quarter-final, we got beat 3-1 by Fulham. So we're slightly unlucky, I think, in that we managed to draw a Premier League team in every round we played. And just disappointing to get beaten by our nearest rivals in the quarter-final. And then the Carabao Cup did not go to plan at all. Beaten 1-0 away at home by Aston Villa at the first point of asking. Looking at the squad, I think nailing Cole Palmer in was a success for this first season. 41 games, 12 goals, 14 assists, average rating of 7.12 over the whole season. And Nkunku, once he came back from injury, 18 goals in 28 games in all in total. Sterling, top goal scorer, with 19. Chilwell with plenty of assists from the left-hand side as well. Obviously, there's some areas we need to strengthen and we need to look at, but overall for the first season, I'll probably just about take that. And then going into season 2, we've got 66 million in the bank to spend. We've got 104,000 in the wage budget available as well. So let's see if we can improve the squad for season 2. So at the start of season 2, we've done a bit of business in the transfer market. We managed to sell Lukaku for 37 million. Armando Broja went out for 23 million. Malang Sarr went out for 5.5 million. And it enables us to spend quite big, and we've strengthened more the back half of the team than the front half of the team. I think with Nkunku back from injury, with Sterling, with Palmer, with all the other attacking players, I think we're pretty well stocked there. So we've gone for some more defensive-minded players. Firstly, we picked up Guido Rodriguez once his contract expired with Real Betis, can play in that holding midfield role if we're going to use that. We then thought we needed to improve the goalkeeping position. I know Rob Sanchez kept the joint most clean sheets in the league, but we've gone and signed Mamardashvili from Valencia to try and improve our position there. Obviously, young as well at 23. He should hopefully be there for the whole 5 seasons of the rebuild. And then obviously Thiago Silva's left. So we've gone and signed a couple of centre-halves. Firstly, Ousmane Diomande, just strong, big, good on the ball as well. Should immediately come in and improve the defence. And then we've also picked up Arthur Thiat from Rennes, can play centre-half at a push, can play a left-back as well, and just gives us more options in that centre of defence. Tactically, we're going with the same formation that we had in season 1. We are again nailing Cole Palmer in, because despite how well he played last season, he's only started one of the first 4 games this season. As far as the season preview is concerned, again, we're predicted to finish 5th, and again, we don't have anyone in the media dream 11. And then as far as the season's gone so far, we haven't had the best of starts. We started with an away game against Arsenal that we lost 1-0. We then hammered Everton at home 4-1 and beat Fulham 2-0 away in the next game. And then the most recent league game, we went away to Man City and got hammered, and they've just spent over 200 million on signing Vinicius Jr. from Real Madrid as well. So we didn't exactly, the strengthening of the defence and the back end of the pitch didn't really seem to pay dividends in that game. So let's go ahead and simulate season 2 and see if we can improve on last season's 3rd position in the league. And so we did manage to go one better than season 1. We finished in 2nd, a long way though behind Man City, 13 points behind them. We lost 7 more games than they did. But the positives, and Nkunku 2nd top goal scorer with 26, Sterling at the top of the assists. Mamardashvili kept the same number of clean sheets as we did last season, but it was a very different season. So last season we were mostly always in and around that sort of top 4 position. This season we were down in 11th, sort of midway through the season, and even as late as after 28 games we were down in 9th or 8th, and then a rapid rise towards the end of the season to see us finish in 2nd. Unlike season 1, we had European football in season 2 in the Champions League, and the league phase went pretty well. We won 6 of 8 league phase games, including hammering Inter and even Arsenal as well. We did lose 2 games, losing away at Milan and away at Real Madrid, but we managed to finish 5th, which meant we missed the knockout playoff round and jumped into the last 16. unfortunately there we came across Barcelona. We lost the first leg 3-1. We drew the second leg 2-2 and went out 5-3 on aggregate. And then the FA Cup this season saw us need a replay to get past Plymouth in the third round. We then beat Hull at home in the fourth round before Man City went out and knocked us out in the fifth round on their way to picking up the trophy. And the Carabao Cup again was a bit of a damn squib. We ended up losing 2-1 at home to Sheffield Wednesday. We did take the lead after 9 minutes through Conor Gallagher, and then Cole Palmer got himself sent off in the 10th minute. And then we obviously just ran out of gas in the second half. They scored 2 goals in the second half. And that was the end of the Carabao Cup campaign for the season. Now, looking at how the squad performed, Nkunku outstanding with 36 goals in 49 games and 12 assists. We're slightly lacking in goals apart from him. Cole Palmer, second top scorer with 14. And Conor Gallagher, the only other player in double figures. And then looking forward, we've got 94 million in the transfer budget. We've got just under £500,000 a week in the wage budget. So hopefully we can make a bit of a splash and try and improve the squad ahead of season 3. So season 3 has seen us go really big in the transfer window. We did have 90 million available for us to spend. We have sold some players to boost the transfer kitty. Raheem Sterling going to Al Ittihad for 100 million. Guido Rodriguez, after one season, having signed for free, goes out to Al Ahly for 60 million. And then the players that we've brought in. So we started with a couple of free transfers. Firstly, Kefren Turam coming in the centre of midfield, and Luka Topolovic coming in as a potential player who could come to the fore towards the end of the rebuild. Obviously, Kendry Paez joins the club from a deal that was already done. And then where we went really big, we signed Yeremy Pino as a bit of a replacement for Sterling. Can play on either flank, can play through the middle as well if needed. We then went all out and signed Florian Wirtz as well, just to strengthen that midfield and the centre of the pitch, and at a push again can play on either flank. And just to really boost the options in defence, we signed Pavlovic from RB Salzburg as well. Tactically, we've pretty much kept the same shape. We've altered some of the rules in the centre of the pitch, and we're not locking anyone in going into this season. League-wise, we're now joint third favourite for the title with Liverpool. And we do now have 3 players in the Media Dream 11. We've got Yeremy Pino, we've got Moises Caicedo, we've got Christopher Nkunku as well. And we've started the season pretty well. We played Man City in the Community Shield and came away with a 3-1 victory thanks to 2 late Nkunku goals. And then league-wise, we started with a 2-0 victory away at Blackburn. We won 6-2 at home against Everton and 3-1 at home against West Ham to start with 9 points from 9 in the league. Champions League-wise, we've got a bit of a mixed bag. We've got Porto to start. We've got Arsenal for the second season in a row in the league phase. We've got Bayern Munich and Napoli sort of towards the middle of the fixtures, and then we end with Sparta Prague and Monaco. It's a relatively decent draw of games. It could have been a lot harder. So hopefully we can match last season and finish in the top 8 and skip the knockout playoff round. So let's go ahead, simulate season 3 and see how we go on. Now, before we get into how season 3 went, I came back in January just to see if there was any players available or going to be available at the end of the contracts at the end of the season. And we had an awful lot of offers for players, so we took advantage of them. We sold Ian Maatsen for 3 million. We sold Robert Sanchez for 12.75 million. Moises Caicedo went to PSG for 120 million. Axel Disasi went to Al Weda for 20.5 million. And basically, we took the money that we got for Caicedo, moved that over to Man City, and brought Phil Foden to the club. Quite why Man City were willing to let him go is anyone's guess. But we were quite happy to be able to bring him to the club. And it turned out to be an outstanding season. We ended up winning the title. We were 11 points clear of Arsenal at the top. We went from losing 10 games last season to just losing 5 this season. And, I mean, we lost to Blackburn, other than that, and Brentford. Other than that, we lost to 3 of the top 8. So the thing about losing to Blackburn is they won 4 games all season. One of them was against us. They also beat Arsenal, who finished 2nd, and Man City, who finished 5th, and beat local rivals Burnley, and then didn't win another game apart from those 4 all season. I mean, looking at the sort of past positions, we were top for a big chunk of the season. I'm not quite sure why it shows us dropping down to 8th after the last day of the season, given we finished 11 points clear. We did have a bit of a blip around the end of January, beginning of February, but we were quickly rose back to the top, and a pretty decent season all round in the league. Nkunku again, second top scorer with 22 goals. Foden had 13 assists between his time at Man City and his time with us. And Florian Wirtz was right up there in terms of Man of the Match awards as well. Champions League wise, the league phase didn't go quite as well as we were hoping. We won 4 of the 8 games, beating Monaco, Sparta Prague, and hammering Bayern at home, as well as beating Porto. We drew against Arsenal and then lost narrowly away at Napoli and Nice before getting hammered away at Valencia. Because we only finished 15th in the league phase, it meant we went into the knockout playoff round, where we were drawn against Monaco again, and we beat them 2-1 in the first leg and then hammered them 5-0 in the second leg to see us go through 7-1 in aggregate. The last 16, we were drawn against Real Madrid and won the first leg 4-3, drew the second leg 1-1 to go through 5-4 in aggregate, which saw us gain a measure of revenge against Valencia. Obviously, they hammered us in the league phase. We beat them 3-1 in the first leg and then drew the second leg 0-0, which saw us through to the semi-final against PSG. Now, the first leg we won at home 2-0, goals in the second half from Cole Palmer and Nkunku. It was a deserved victory despite them having all the possession. And like when you look at their team, they've signed Gitroida, they've signed De Bruyne, they've got obviously Caicedo, who we sold them, they've got Leroy Sané, they've still got Mbappe, they've got Maddison on the bench, which is a strange one. I think he was on loan at PSG in that season. So we won the first leg 2-0, put ourselves in a pretty strong position. But then unfortunately, in the second leg, they came away with a 3-0 victory. We didn't really perform on the day, and we ended up going out 3-2 on aggregate. And then PSG went on to beat Arsenal 3-1 in the final. The FA Cup, again, we needed a third round replay, this time against Everton, but we won the replay 5-1. The fourth round saw us knock out Swansea 3-0 away from home. The fifth round saw us dispatch Man United 4-2. We then beat West Ham on penalties in the quarter-final. We hammered Sheffield United 7-2 in the semi-final. Nkunku picked up 4. Pino, Foden and Florian Wirtz got the others. And then in the final, we hammered Liverpool 5-1. Just a sort of dominant performance, despite them having slightly more of the ball. Only one team was going to win that game, and we came away with the trophy. 2 goals for Phil Foden in a man of the match performance. And then the Carabao Cup, we finally made it past the third round by hammering Brighton 4-0. We then hammered Bradford 5-0 in the fourth round, but then got knocked out on penalties by Sheffield United in the quarter-final. And then looking at what the squad managed to produce, we did supplement Nkunku's goals. Nkunku ended up with 44 goals in 56 games. Florian Wirtz popped up with 22, Thuram with 20, Pino with 16, and Enzo Fernandez popped up with 11. And then in terms of the assists, we had Nkunku, Wirtz, Thuram, Pino, Fernandez, Foden, and Conor Gallagher all in double digits. I'm not sure how we go about improving the squad for season 4, but we do have 92 million in the transfer budget and just under 400,000 in the wage budget to try and do so. So going into season 4, obviously we had some big money available in the budget to spend. We really didn't do an awful lot. A couple of the younger players went out. We brought in a couple of free transfers. So we brought in Gabri Vega and Ruben Neves at the expiry of their contracts in Saudi Arabia, just to provide a bit more strength in depth in that centre of midfield. Again, tactically, we've not actually changed anything from where we finished last season. It seemed to work last season, so we're willing to give it a chance this season. Preview-wise, we're now third favourites for the title, and we've now got 2 different players in the Media Dream 11 compared to the ones that were in the Media Dream 11 last season. This season, it's Reece James and Phil Foden. And so far, the season started okay. Unfortunately, we lost the Community Shield. We drew 3-3 in normal time, and then lost on penalties, missing 3 of 5 penalties. But we bounced back on the opening day of the league season with a 4-1 victory against Brighton. And we drew away at Nottingham Forest, which was a bit of a concern, but bounced back with successive 2-1 victories, first against Crystal Palace and then against Wolves. And then we won in the third round of the EFL Cup, the Carabao Cup, beating Cardiff 2-0. Looking ahead to the Champions League, we have a very tough start to the league phase. We've got Dortmund, we've got Bayern, we've got Barcelona, but then hopefully it gets a bit more straightforward with Ludogorets and Salzburg, and then finishes up with Rennes and Panathinaikos. So let's go ahead and simulate season 4 and see if we could possibly do back-to-back champions. So, season 4 didn't exactly go to plan in several competitions. League-wise, we only finished 4th, and we were 8 points off the champions, who somehow was Tottenham. They only lost 2 games, but drew a massive 14 games during the league season. They ended up finishing on top, and it was just the start of an outstanding season for them. We had 2 of the top goal scorers in the league in Florian Wirtz and Christopher Nkunku. And looking at the pass positions, despite obviously how we started the season, we basically spent the vast majority of the season in 4th position, and just couldn't catch up with the teams at the top. And then moving on to the Champions League, despite what looked like a tough start to the league phase, we actually managed to do pretty well. We finished 6th in the league phase. We won 6 of the 8 games. We did lose the first 2 games against Bayern and Dortmund, but we did manage to beat Barcelona, and then we won the games really that we should have won other than that as well. Because we finished 6th, obviously that meant we weren't going to the knockout playoff round. We went into the round of the last 16, where we got drawn against RB Salzburg. The first leg was a bit close. We won 4-3, but we then hammered them in the second leg 4-0 to go through 8-3 on aggregate. Quarter-final, we had Real Madrid. We won the first leg 1-0, drew the second leg 2-2 to go through 3-2 on aggregate. And then in the semi-final against Liverpool, we drew the first leg 3-3, won the second leg 3-1 to see us through to the final against Tottenham, who managed to win. They got took a 2-goal lead early on. We pulled a goal back through an Nkunku penalty. I mean, they scored from the only 2 shots on target. We had a higher XG, but that's probably only because of the penalty. It doesn't look like it was a game of very good chances, but they came away with the 2-1 victory and the Champions League to add to their league title. The FA Cup began with a 5-2 victory against Exeter. We then hammered Liverpool 5-1 at Anfield in the 4th round. Comfortable victory over Leeds at home in the 5th round. Quarter-final, we needed extra time, but in the end, just really too strong for Southampton, winning 4-1 after extra time. Semi-final saw us beat Arsenal 2-1 and stop there being a North London derby in the final. I half wish we'd been knocked out by Arsenal, given what happened in the final. Tottenham hammered us 4-1. They took the lead through Son. Foden got an equaliser, but then the second half, they were just too good. Son, Porro, Maddison added goals, and they came away with a 4-1 victory And that means that this season they won the league, the Champions League, and the FA Cup with a squad that is not massively different from the squad that they've got in real life. I don't quite know what happened. And obviously, it wasn't a good sign for us losing this game 4-1 to then go the following week into the Champions League final, where we again lost a final to Tottenham. The Carabao Cup saw us start with knocking out Cardiff, that we saw at the start of the season there. We then hammered Forest 4-1, and then in the quarter-final we went out 3-2 against Man United. Tottenham also went out at the quarter-final stage, so they didn't win the quadruple, and Man City picked up the Carabao Cup. Squad-wise, we obviously didn't score as many goals as last season, and Kunku was over 40 goals last season. He was down at 25 this season. Florian Wirtz with 25 as well. Thuram with 19, Palmer, Pino and Enzo Fernandez also in double figures. A bit of a step back from what we managed to achieve in season 3. Looking forward, we've got just shy of 100 million to spend transfer budget-wise, but we don't have any room in the wage budget, so it's going to require a bit of wiggle room with the budgets. If we're going to be able to improve this squad for season 5. So, season 5 didn't see an awful lot of action in the transfer window. Ben Chilwell left at the end of season 4, at the end of his contract, to go to Saudi Arabia. We brought in one player, and that one player was Gavi. Not quite sure why Barcelona let him go, because he'd started 30 league games for them in the previous season. We are potentially looking at switching up the formation, because it didn't really seem to work last season. We started the season with the 4-3-3, but obviously we didn't score as many goals as last season. We've got an abundance of players that can play in the attacking midfield position, so it may be a case that we bring the two wingers in to go behind the front man. As far as the season preview is concerned, again, we're 4th favourites. Now we're back to not having any players in the Media Dream 11. But so far the season started well. We did pick up a 1-0 victory at home to Man City on the opening day of the season, despite suffering injuries to Florian Wirtz and Yeremy Pino in that game. We then beat Everton 2-1 away from home. And then a very high scoring game against Man United. We ended up on the right end of that, going away with a 6-4 victory before beating Leicester 4-0, and then getting the Carabao Cup campaign off to a decent start with a 3-1 victory against Rotherham. Looking at the Champions League, I think it's a fairly decent set of fixtures. I mean, obviously we've got Bayern, we've got Leverkusen, we've got Atletico, we've got PSG. I think we should do pretty well. Hopefully we can finish in that top 8 to skip the knockoff. Hopefully we can finish in the top 8 to skip the knockout playoff round. But let's go ahead and simulate the 5th and final season and see how we did. And so unfortunately we weren't able to add another Premier League trophy. We finished 2nd again, behind Liverpool, 7 points behind them at this time. Christopher Nkunku was the top scorer in the league. Florian Wirtz really popped up with the assists, with 20 assists in the league competition, the 3rd highest average rating in the league, and Nkunku with the most player of the matches and the most free kick goals as well. Looking at the past positions, we were kind of all over the place. We started well, and then we had a dip, recovered a bit, then a dip, then recovered a bit, and then a dip towards the end of the season, which really cost us. Those 2 defeats against Bournemouth and Burnley are effectively what ended any chance of winning the title. We managed to get ourselves back up to 2nd at the end of the season, but just too far behind Liverpool. Champions League, we did okay in the league phase. We ended up finishing 8th, so we got the aim of finishing in the top 8. We won 5 games, and we managed to beat PSG. We hammered Galatasaray. We drew with Atletico and Fiorentina, and got hammered away at Bayern Munich. So we went into the round of 16 against Roma. We drew the first leg 1-1, won the second leg 2-1 to go through 3-2 in aggregate. And then in the quarter-final, PSG got a measure of revenge on us. We won the first leg 3-2. They won the second leg 3-1. And they went through 5-4 on aggregate, on their way to getting beat in the final on penalties by Real Madrid. Our FA Cup campaign got off to a comfortable start, a 7-2 victory away at Stockport in the third round. The fourth round saw us beat Bradford 3-0. But in the fifth round, we ran into Man United and went out 2-1. And the Carabao Cup, as we saw, we started by beating Rotherham 3-1 in the third round. In the fourth round, we managed to beat Man United 1-0. But then in the quarterfinals, we went out on penalties to Liverpool. Looking at the squad again, we were a bit down on goals on where we were at our peak in Season 3. And Kunku with 28 goals in 48 games. Florian Wirtz with 18 goals and 24 assists, just an outstanding season from him. Thuram again, right up there with the goals. And Pino, Palmer and Foden all in double figures for goals as well. And so our 5 seasons at Chelsea have come to an end. And we did manage to get them back up challenging for titles. Realistically though, just one FA Cup and one league in the 5 seasons, given the money we spent, given the squad we put together, feels like a bit of a disappointment. That fourth season where we got to the FA Cup final and the Champions League final and got beat by Tottenham in both, it'll take quite a bit to recover from, I think. But we made one of the aims, which was to survive 5 seasons at Chelsea without getting the sack. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time for the next rebuild.